Hello, everyone, and welcome to CNU Talks Live at Lunch. This is our August edition, and we are so excited to start this school year off with you all. So, thank you so much for joining us. CNU Talks has brought us a variety of speakers over the last couple of months. We've had professors and President Kelly and coaches and alumni all doing incredible things on campus and in their communities. And today I am so excited to introduce a wonderful professor and one of my favorite colleagues on this campus, Dr. David Salomon. He joined us in 2017, along with myself as a student, so we have been here just as long as each other. And he is our director and founder of the Office of Student Research and Creative Activity, or belovedly known as ORCA. They do have killer whales all over their office. And David, I think you have one that's named, correct?
We do. He's our mascot, Ollie. The Ollie is our mascot.
Ollie the Orca in Orca. You can find him and their whole wonderful staff on the second floor of the Tribble Library. But Dr. Salomon here leads all of our student research efforts. And for those of you who don't know, student research is not something that typically happens for undergraduates. But here at Christopher Newport, it's a priority and something that we make sure every student has access to if they're interested. And I'm not going to take away Dr. Salomon's sharing here, but one of my favorite things when I was a student and got to work with him was that research wasn't just for people who wanted to be in labs. That was kind of what I thought it was when I was a student and joined. But no, he was talking about how anything that you want to ask a question about can be research. And it made it so much more accessible to students like myself that seemed like, well, I don't want to do the math or I don't want to do stuff with test tubes. And it turns out research was so much more than that. And it gave me so many experiences as a student, but also it still gives so many students experience now. So I'm going to turn the mic over to him, but I had to share of how my own experience was shaped by him. But then also we're going to be joined by one of his students now, Amber Baldwin. And I can't wait for all that they have to share with us. But with that being said, I'm going to turn the floor over to Dr. Salomon. And
Thank you. Thanks so much, Grace, and thanks for having us today. Ask for people to excuse me a little bit. I'm getting over a cold, so I sound a little raspier than usual. But yeah, I came to CNU the same year, I guess, that Grace did, 2017. I've been a professor of medieval literature and religion for almost 40 years. Taught at several other institutions before I came here, and came to CNU in 2017 to open up this new office. And we've had some pretty good success since then. And you can see on the screen what our sort of our running motto is. And this is one of the first things that I came up with when I came, which is the possibilities are endless. Come in with your new idea. We really want all students to come in, as Grace says, regardless of their major, regardless of their year. It was really a concern of mine to move the idea of doing research, as you say, out of the lab, exclusively out of the lab. And so it was very important that we name the Office of Student Research and Creative Activity, because it involves a lot. Research is really all-encompassing, and I'll explain what I mean by that here in just a minute. So this is the way that the Council on Undergraduate Research defines undergraduate research. An inquiry investigation conducted by an undergrad that makes an original intellectual or creative contribution to the discipline. And oftentimes when I'm talking with students and with parents about doing this kind of work, their initial reaction when they see this definition is, oh my God, how am I going to do that? 18, 19 years old, how am I going to make an original contribution? And my response to that is always that they've been doing that their whole lives. My favorite students have always been perpetual 2-year-olds. A 2-year-old's favorite question is why? And if you can ask that question, you are, in fact, a researcher, because that's what researchers do. They ask that question. Why is it this way? Why is it not that way? And then once you figure that out, you whip a little creative activity on it, and you figure out, well, why isn't it this way? So imagine again the 2-year-old who builds something out of Legos and brings you over so that you can be so proud of what they've done. What's the next thing that they're going to do? They're going to knock it down and build it in a different way. So you do your research, you figure out why is it this way, and then you take that next step and say, well, why isn't it that way? Why couldn't it be that way? And that really is what it's all about. So all research involves creativity, and all creativity involves research. That really is a thing. And the best examples, I can give you two good examples of that. So research involving creativity. We had a summer scholar, Grace, I think wasn't your year, it was a couple of years, it was a couple of years later because it was the COVID year. Jessica Cropley. Jessica is now actually back at CNU teaching in the chemistry department. And Jessica did summer scholars the year of COVID, so the year of 2020. And she was a chemistry major. And her project was to look at the elasticity of vegan cheese. Vegan cheese, if you know anything about vegan cheese, one of the complaints is always that it doesn't melt well. If you're a vegan or a vegetarian and you eat it, it doesn't do a good job when you're making pizza. And so she wanted to figure out from a chemical molecular perspective, why isn't it that it wasn't more elastic, and what could you do to change that? Well, the problem with that was then we sent everybody home for COVID that summer. So she was home trying to do this research without a lab. And so she set up this Rube Goldberg thing in her kitchen to measure the elasticity of vegan cheese. She's promised to send me a picture of it. I talked to her the other day about it because I know I had a picture of it at one point because I had her do a radio show afterwards where she talked about her research. And so, I mean, she had to be incredibly creative in order to make that research happen still that summer, and she did. And creativity involving research. I mean, if you have ever worked with oil paint to do an oil painting, you know that if you're going to be an oil paint artist, you need to know something about chemistry and understand how oils function, how they work, how they mix, etc. And so it really is kind of a two-way street. So what I did in the Orca was I set up our programs based on the medieval guild model. I am a medievalist. And so we have a program at three levels: the apprentice level, the journeyman, journeywoman level, and then the master level. And I'll talk a little bit about each one of these as we go along here to explain what they are all about. The big thing is that each one of the programs that we offer through the Orca actually pays the student while they're doing the research. So not only is it unusual, as Grace mentioned, to have undergraduates doing research, never mind that, having undergraduates doing paid research is something which is a real anomaly. So we have the Research Apprentice Program, which is our entry-level program. And this is a program for students who have really no experience doing what they want to do. First-time researchers, they're going to learn about techniques and methodologies, procedures, learn about what it is to do research in their discipline. Basically, the faculty are training them. They are apprentices. They develop skills, and they work through that. So, for example, if they're in a lab, they might be learning how to do procedures in the lab. If they're working with documents, they might be learning how to work in the archives, how to transcribe documents, how to work with manuscripts, etc. We do have, this is one of our most popular programs, actually. And at the moment, this semester, we have 42 students doing a research apprenticeship. And in the spring, we will add more because what I do each year is I save spots in the spring for first-time students and freshmen and transfer students. So I want students to be able to be involved in doing research as soon as they can their first year. First semester, we want them to get their feet about them, land here, and then the second semester will allow them to get involved and actually do research and figure out what that's all about. Summer Scholars is our next level up. This is our journeyman, journeywoman level. This is our collaborative research with a faculty member. It's over the summer. It takes place in June and July. It's 8 weeks. We are paying students a handsome stipend now of $6,000. And that also can include some on-campus housing if they need it. It's a very, very good program. We just actually completed our 15th year of Summer Scholars, and students participate in that from pretty much every discipline across campus. During the 8 weeks, we do a series of professional development workshops on topics from everything from best practice for presenting. We do ethics in research. I added this summer a workshop on AI in research. And we also do some fun stuff. We see movies and we play mini golf and We had a trivia night, a faculty summer scholars trivia contest. It was our third one, so we've been doing that for 3 years. Our independent research grants then are the master level. These are $1,500 grants that students can receive in the fall, spring, or summer, and they're working on independent research with the oversight of a faculty member. So you can kind of see how the three programs ramp up. The research apprentice program, you're working for a faculty member. Summer scholars, you're working with a faculty member. Independent research grants, you're working on your own with the oversight of a faculty member. You don't have to do them in order. You don't have to do all of them. We want to meet students where they're at. More and more students are coming in from high school with research experience in high school. I always like to say that, pretty soon fourth graders are going to be expected to have publications. So it just keeps getting rolled back earlier and earlier. So some students may not need the research apprentice program, and we can put them right into summer scholars. Independent research grants been really great. We've had some really fantastic projects. The one on the left is Jenna Millidan. Jenna graduated from CNU a few years back. She did research all the time she was here with Dr. Janet Stevens. Some of you may know her in biology. And she became kind of an expert on that flower that she's holding called the Silene. And she came to me one spring and said, I'd really like to go and study this in the field where it grows. And one of the places it grows is in Cyprus. So she wrote an independent research grant for that summer, and she went to Cyprus to study the plant in situ where it grows in Cyprus, and that's what that picture is that's on the screen. Every summer we publish the cupola. We've just published our 19th edition. This is the journal for CNU students. It's really the best of undergraduate and graduate research on campus. We do it in print and online. We have a print edition and an online edition, which you can access through our website. It is registered with the Library of Congress, and it is a peer-reviewed journal. Every student who's published in the cupola receives an honorarium, and the two top students published win $500 awards. We also, after COVID, started including publication of posters in the cupola. We had a special poster edition the year of COVID, because so many students couldn't go to conferences. I still wanted them to be able to share their research. So we did a separate poster edition, and now we just have integrated that into the regular edition. So we include posters as well in the cupola. We have our Research Lens Travel Fund. We send students all over the world, really, to present their research or to conduct research. And I'll talk a little bit about the difference in just a second. Students can apply for funding and receive funding to help defray the cost of airfare, accommodations, registration, food, that kind of thing. And we have had students recently travel all over the world, actually, to go and present and conduct their research. They've gone to conferences, regional conferences, national conferences. We had a student last summer who went to Nairobi. That's her up there with the giraffe. It's one of my favorite pictures. And students at conferences all over the world. We also support students to go and conduct research to do that with the Research Lens Travel Fund. So we have had a student in the past who has gone and done a summer writing workshop in Amherst, Massachusetts, and the Research Lens Travel Fund supported her travel to go and do that. This is Summer Duba, who presented her work on fish. She's out now in graduate school, just starting in Washington State. Here she was in Seattle at Pike's Place, and they all loved her there because they wanted the big fish market wanted to talk to the fish biologist. Every spring we have our conference. Some of you may remember this. Paideia has been around a long time, but it's probably changed a bit since you were here. It now takes place on a Friday, and it's a rather large conference. Last year we had about 250 students present their work in posters, oral presentations, and performances. We do it in the Tribble Library and the DSU and also in the Torgler now. Each year we have a keynote speaker. This year, Paideia is going to be on April 17th, and everyone is more than welcome to attend. And our keynote speaker this year is Amanda Montell, who's written a couple of really interesting books. The most recent one is that book in the picture called Cultish, on the language of fanaticism. We have a bunch of other events that we run throughout the year. One of our most popular ones is something we call the Thesis Throwdown. This is a 3-minute competition, so students get 3 minutes and 3 slides to present their work. There's a panel of judges who judge. First place wins $250. Second place wins $150, and then we do an audience favorite vote, and that person also wins $150. We have a graduate and an undergraduate competition for this at the same time. So graduate students and undergraduates are competing in their own categories. And Amber, did you win last year? You came in second?
I
Can't
got
remember.
the fan favorite award.
Fan favorite, right? So Amber did a great job last year, and I'll introduce her more in a minute here so she can talk to you about her work. Here's some of the group from last year who won awards at the Thesis Throwdown. We've also had students involved in doing a lot of really interesting research. Abby Sloniker started our first gen organization through a research project that she did with Dr. Linda Waldron, and that continues. We have a podcast because who doesn't? Actually, Amber is one of our podcast hosts this year. It's called Captains from the Pod, and it drops every 2 weeks during the academic year. I think our first episode this year is going to be next week, maybe, Amber? Is that right? And you can get it on Apple and on Spotify. Just search for Captains from the Pod and you'll find it easily. So one of the things that students always ask, and parents too, is, well, how do I get involved in this? This is all great. Well, we have something called the Orca Research Match. It's an online platform that we use. It's kind of like Match.com for research. So students can go on there and they set up their profile and they can search for faculty who are doing research in something that they're interested in. And it will tell you whether the faculty member is actively recruiting. They can apply right from there. They can talk to the faculty member and work on that. They also come in and meet with me, of course, because a lot of the times the opportunities that they're looking for are things that are a little bit off the beaten path, and maybe it's something that I know about that you wouldn't find on the Orca Research Match. The nice thing about the research match is I really encourage students to be involved in interdisciplinary work, and this really encourages that. So, for example, if you went onto the Orca Research Match and you said, I'm really interested in doing research in cancer, and you put in cancer, you're going to get the faculty who are working on cancer research in biology, sure. You're going to get the people working on cancer research in neuroscience, yeah. But you're also going to get the people who are working on cancer research in communications and in psychology and in economics because they're looking at this from different perspectives. And that really encourages students to do the same thing. One of the biggest success stories that I've had over the last few years, before we had the Orca Research Match, students used to come into the office and I was used to joke that I put on my babushka and be a yenta and make a match for them. We had a student come in and she was a freshman and she came in, she said, I want to do research, but I don't know what to do. I said, okay, what are you interested in? And she said, I'm interested in history and theater. Like, okay, that's an interesting combination. Tell me more. And she explained what she was interested in, what her background in high school had been. And I said, all right, let me check out what I can find, and I'll get back to you. And not 2 hours after I had her meeting with her, I walked down to Einstein's to get a coffee, and I bumped into Dr. Kathy Jaremski from the theater department, and chit-chatting said, how was your summer? What do you got on plan for this year? And she said, I really want to get involved and do research and do a database, an online database of costumes in theater history. I said, boy, do I have the student to work for you. And so I connected that student with Dr. Jaremski. She worked for I think for 3 semesters and built that database and presented on it at a conference eventually that year. Here you can see some of the other profiles, and you can kind of see the variety of things that are up there. We do our Passport to Research series. So this is a series of workshops that we do throughout the year on a variety of topics. Things like, again, best practices in using PowerPoint. We do one on Grad School 101. There's one on keeping a research journal. Amber, you've done a couple of them as well. What topics have you done, Amber?
My favorite one that I've done is how to communicate your research to non-research audiences.
Yeah, that's great. And so this series has become very popular. Students actually get a physical passport and we stamp it. And once they get 5 stamps on the passport, they get a badge in their research match profile. They get a certificate from our office and a gift from the office. They get a note from the dean, and it's a great thing for them to put on their resumes or their grad school applications. So we have levels. Each time you do 5, you move to the next level. I think, Amber, you are now on like level 4. I don't even think we have a level 4 yet, but we have to create it for you. But we've got several students who are up in 2 and 3, so that's been really great. So this is part of, you probably know, something that's called experiential learning. Right? Experiential learning involves pretty much 4 pillars at CNU: study abroad, CNU engage, community engagement, internships, and undergraduate research. And so it really is about learning through research. It's about taking what you have learned in the classroom and then putting that into practice beyond the classroom. So it has a lot of great benefits. I think one of the most important ones that's on that list is the next to the bottom: network with other students and scholars in your field, because that is what a lot of students really need going forward. We are inviting them into the community of scholars and researchers by participating in our programs and really inviting them and encouraging them to get involved with the field. So I always encourage students, join the professional organization for your field as a student. The dues are usually cheap, certainly cheaper than when you are going to be a full professor, and it allows you to become a part of that network. When I came to CNU in 2017, the goal was that 30% of CNU students would have been involved in undergraduate research by the time that they graduate. Um, I'm happy to say that by 2024, we were up at 37%, and last year we maintained that. So we have reached the goal and also exceeded the goal. We have twice been a finalist for the Council on Undergraduate Research's campus-wide award, and we have submitted again this year. And I expect, I hope we will be a finalist again. It's one of these things that you do have to apply for several times before you win, so I'm determined to win it. It's a nice national recognition for us. Our office is in the library on the second floor, room 230. We always have coffee and candy. We're not afraid to lure people in when we have to. It's a good place to crash and quiet group study. We've got a nice conference room, and we also can print posters for students for conferences. There you see Ollie, our emotional support orca. So he is the daddy that you come to the office to see. And he has little babies that are all over the place that people have and people get as gifts. We have an ambassador program, so we have students who basically liaisons between us and each of the colleges. And so we have ambassadors for arts and humanities, social sciences. We actually have 4 for the natural behavioral sciences because we have so many students from natural behavioral sciences. Amber is one of those ambassadors. One from Luder, and then Caitlin Kinslow is our current student fellow who handles all of our social media and publicity. We're on Facebook and Instagram, so please follow us. Already mentioned our podcast, available, as I said, on Spotify and Amazon. There is my contact information, and I am going to invite Amber to talk a little bit about the experiences that she has had as a student here. Amber is a senior now, neuroscience major. I'm going to stop my share here. And she has done some really amazing research and traveled to several incredible conferences. And Amber is a true rising star at CNU and is going to go far. So, Amber, if you talk a little bit about the work that you've done while you've been here.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction. I'm Amber, as Dr. Solomon mentioned, and I've been doing research all 4 years at CNU. Coming into college, I knew I wanted to major in neuroscience and I knew I wanted to get involved in research pretty early. So I, as like a nervous, anxious freshman, decided to cold email faculty that I found through the research match. And my current PI, Dr. Gina Fernandez, responded, and I've been working with her ever since. So my research is on adolescent exposure to nicotine and alcohol and how that impacts behavior long term. And so during my first year here, I sort of, it was also my PI's first year at CNU, so I got the experience of sort of starting up a lab from scratch, basically. And in the spring of that year, I was a part of the Research Apprentice program, and I was a part of that program for, I think, 4 semesters total. So that was very like pivotal for me to be able to have access to that funding through Orca because without that I wouldn't have been able to dedicate as much time to research while also handling my classes and things like that. Um, so that was an amazing program for sort of starting out research and seeing and discovering that I loved it and I wanted to continue it. And as Dr. Solomon mentioned, I've been able to attend the Society for Neuroscience meetings, which are international meetings that take place in various cities every year in the United States. So with the Lens Travel Fund, I've been able to attend in Washington, D.C., as well as Chicago, Illinois, and this year I'm going to San Diego to present my work. Um,
And you have been awarded a pretty sweet award from the Society for Neuroscience for that. What for this year? Tell them about that.
yeah, so Dr. Fernandez, who I work with, she urged me to apply for some grants through the Society for Neuroscience. And I honestly wasn't expecting to get awarded them because the one that I applied for is the Professional Development Award, and that award's usually around 300 people, with 90% of them being postdoc, um, like researchers. And so I applied and I got my acceptance email, and it turns out only 20 undergraduate students internationally were selected for that award this year. Um, so I'm very grateful for that opportunity, and I'm super excited to attend that conference. Um,
That's
but
fantastic. Congratulations. And the
you
conference this year is in San Diego, and that award is going to pretty much pay for your attendance, isn't it?
it's paying for like 80% of it.
Yeah. And the
So
20% of it will Orca will pick up. So
right. Yeah. So, and now coming up this year, I've also received an independent research grant through Orca. While I was completing a summer fellowship, my junior year, I came up with an independent research project in my spare time there and proposed it to my faculty mentor, and she was like, "Sure, what the heck? I know Orca will support this." So I applied for that funding as well, and that's actually the project that I'm presenting at the conference. So I think it's a really sort of full circle opportunity to be able to come up with my project from scratch and awarded independent research funding for that, and being able to present it to an international audience. I think that's an opportunity that's super unique and I don't think would have been possible without the support of Orca. And as Dr. Solomon mentioned, I'm also an Orca ambassador for the office. So I meet with students. I also give talks to classes about what our office has to offer. And through this opportunity, I've found really the thing that I found most rewarding is the mentorship aspect. The conference that I'm attending in San Diego, actually, I'm attending with a student that I talked with their freshman year, so last year, and urged them to like reach out to faculty and stuff like that. And now we're attending a conference together. So it's moments like that that make me just so thankful for everything the office has to offer, and thankful that I got involved in research in the first place. So that's a little bit about my journey in research.
Amber, can you talk a little bit about the experiences that you've had the last 2 summers? Because you've done research up at Virginia Commonwealth at the hospital,
Mhm.
medical center, right? You tell it better than I do, so go ahead.
CNU has a sort of partnership research program with VCU Poly Heart Center. So every year, 2 to 3 students are selected in like a competitive interview application process to participate in this program. And so the summer after my junior year, no, sophomore year, I applied for the first time and I was accepted. And I completed 10 weeks of full-time research with faculty in the Polyheart Center. So I was researching the effects of a certain chemotherapy on atherosclerosis, which is plaque buildup in the heart. And I loved that program so much that I decided to apply again for this past summer. Um, and they select usually one returning fellow, 1 to 2 returning fellows for this program. And I was awarded that spot. And so I was the first person from CNU to return to that program. And this past summer, I got to continue my project in mice. So last 2 summers ago, I was working with cells. And now the project has progressed, and now I'm working with mice. And through that opportunity, I'm we're in the process of submitting 2 papers for publication. One of them both of them I'm second author for. One's a lit review, and then the second is a manuscript. And I'm also submitting to present at the AHA, the American Heart Association conference, which is in New Orleans this year, next year. So those are some sort of external opportunities that I've had, and Orca has supported me through that as well, through that whole journey.
That's fantastic. Well, thanks, Amber. Yeah, Amber's really one of our rock stars, as you can tell. So the one thing that we didn't cover in the PowerPoint is we also now have a certificate in research and creative activity. Amber actually is in that program as well and is going to be graduating in May with the certificate. We are the first school in Virginia to offer this. It's a 12 credit transcripted certificate that shows that students have done research. Includes 9 credits that pretty much they're already taking because they're classes that are in their major. And then there's a 2 credit intro class and a 1 credit capstone course. We graduated our first 4 students with a certificate this past May, and we will have a bunch more graduate this May. So really proud of that. And as I say, we're the first ones in Virginia to offer that. So it makes us a standout. Um, so I'm going to go back to Grace here. Um, and
Yeah.
see if anybody has any questions.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for sharing. I mean, I'm clearly biased. I love your office and just such a big fan. But it's so cool and even like so cool to hear that goal that you came in with, starting with getting 30% of our students. And congratulations on achieving and going past that. That is so cool and also speaks so much to the heart of Christopher Newport of the values that we have in leadership and service and research. And I love that our students are getting those opportunities. And Amber, it sounds like you're doing incredible work. Congratulations. That is so cool. What independent research are you presenting on this year? Which project is that?
So I'm working with an a potential therapeutic for smoking cessation. So I researched different antagonist drugs, which is just a fancy way of saying they block the rewarding effects of nicotine in the brain. And I found one that hasn't been tested in adolescents. So my goal with that project is to deliver that potential therapeutic alongside nicotine and see if it decreases the rewarding effects in adulthood. So that's sort of the brief synopsis of what I'm
Yeah.
presenting on.
No, that's awesome. And I mean, we know also that smoking and vaping have become such an epidemic, especially in adolescence. So that's really cool.
But the
That's,
really great thing about Amber is, and she mentioned this when I asked her, I mean, she's done a workshop for us on presenting your research to non-researchers. Is it's so important for students to be able to communicate about what they're doing and to be
yeah.
able to know how to do that. And Amber does it so beautifully. But it is a difficult thing, especially if you are in the hard sciences, because they're really complex things that you're working on. And, the worst thing that you can do, I always tell students, is to say, I know this is really complicated, so I'll try to explain it to you, which basically says, I think you're an idiot, but I'm going to try to tell you anyway. It's instead try to figure out how to talk about this in a way that might people relate to, and people will understand. I hammer home to all of the students who I work with that really there are four questions, right, that you have to be able to answer. What did you do? Why'd you do it? What'd you find? And so what? Right?
Mhm.
I mean, the what did you do? Why'd you do it? What'd you find? Easy stuff. The so what? That's the most important part of this, right? Because if the research isn't something that somebody can relate to and understand, okay, well, so you did that, so what? What's the point, right? And I know that even as somebody who is in the humanities, I've run through that my entire career. I remember as a graduate student working on things and trying to talk to my parents who were not academics, were both high school graduates, and talk to them about what I was doing. And pretty much the question they always asked was, so what? Right? I mean, so you're doing that. So what? Why does it matter?
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that's such a cool tool that you're also equipping our current students and researchers with of exactly like we're so glad that you guys are getting to do this research, but if it's just staying in your brain and not out into the world, it's still worth it. But we want it to go past that. Um, but we do have someone who's asking a question for you, Amber, saying they're very impressed with your experience. And do you know what your post-grad plans are so far? I know the question you're going to get all year long, but do you know what you're interested in doing yet and mind sharing that with us?
Yeah, so I've decided that I'm applying to MD PhD programs. So that's a combined degree that is 8 years long, where you complete your medical degree as well as a PhD. And I sort of came into college thinking I would do an MD, but then my research experience has sort of been like, okay, I don't really want to give that up. Like I fell in love with it too much. So that's sort of the perfect career path for me, I think. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. And way to go, Orca, for opening up those doors.
Yeah, and
Love
and and
that.
and if you're not aware, I mean, an MD PhD is incredibly difficult and not common. I mean, there are people who do it, but they're sort of unicorns, and so Amber's going to become a unicorn, and it's an impressive thing, and she can do it. Is the That's the really impressive thing, is that she actually, I think, can do it.
That's awesome. No, I mean, congratulations, Amber, and good luck also on that process because I can't imagine. I mean, applying to med school is difficult enough, and applying to a PhD is difficult enough. So I imagine it's a beast to do both. But that sounds really great. I also had a question for you guys on, so clearly we've got our lovers of research, but I'm sure you've had students who, this is a door that opened for them, but research wasn't something that they want to do as a career.
Yeah.
What benefits have you seen and do you see from non-researchers or non-research career path students participating in student
Yeah,
research?
no, that's a great question. I mean, I think that this is important for everyone because it will help you decide whether this is what you want to do or whether this is what you don't want to do.
Mhm.
And I've often told my story. I started college as a political science major, sorry, Grace. I wanted to
Okay.
go to law
I forgive
school.
you.
I wanted to go to law school and then took my poli sci courses freshman year. I was bored out of my mind. And then I interned at a law firm the summer after freshman year and I hated it. And so I came back at the beginning of sophomore year and I was like, now what the heck am I going to do? But the fact is that I was able to do that internship slash research experience with a law firm that summer. And I'm so grateful that that happened because it showed me that that was not what I wanted to do. I was convinced that that was what I wanted to do. And this showed me, no, I had in my mind what it was going to look like. And then you get in there and do it. And it's like, okay, that's not what it's really like. And so I tell students it's important to do this to to both to sort of ratify the fact that you figured out what you want, but also in case maybe this isn't what you want and you do it or you're exploring something. One of the first students we had in the research apprentice program, she was a double major, sociology and art history, and she had focused in her 3 years at that point at CNU on her sociology major as far as research was concerned. And her senior year, she said, I'd like to really do some research in art history and see what that's all about. So she did the research apprentice program with an art historian her senior year to sort of dip her toe in that water and see what that was all about as well. And so it really gives people an opportunity. And I think that's the big thing is the office is, for me, about opportunity and potential, right? We want everyone's potential to be fulfilled. And the only way that that can happen is if we make those opportunities available to them.
No, absolutely. And I mean, I shamelessly am grateful. I did the summer scholars program my summer after freshman year, and
Yeah,
I
my
discovered
my
that
that was
I
my first year here.
do not like doing research full time. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. I was like, this is not what brings me to life. And I always would tell that though to I was a freshman RA, and I would tell the same story you were telling, Dr. Solomon, of it's awesome when you love your internship. It's actually more important when you don't, because that's going to save you so much time, so much money potentially, so much heartache.
Yeah,
But I'm so grateful because I still use the Orca office, and you guys sent me to present my research that I had done into Philadelphia, and it built my public speaking, and it built my ability to synthesize information. So it's still such valuable information, even if I realize that's not what I want to do professionally.
right,
So I love that you guys don't keep these resources just for students that are looking for this for their careers, because
right.
it benefits anyone and everyone who's willing to ask the questions
Yeah,
that.
I mean, we talk about this at open house events. I mean, our introductory spiel about the offices, we facilitate research and creative opportunities for all students, regardless of their major or their year. Because a lot of people will walk up to our table and look at it and say, "Oh, well, this is about labs, right?" I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, no, look at the name, research and creative activity. We do everything, and a lot of people will say, "Well, what does research look like in art, right?" And so we have to talk about that a little bit and explain that this really does exist across the board. But of course, none of this, I mean, everything that we do in the office, as I say, all of our programs pay the students, but there is a budget there, right? So there's funding that's needed for that. And, we can expand these programs if we receive more funding. Right now, pretty much our entire budget is based on the budget that we get from the state. We don't have a lot of supplemental funding in the ORCA. I would love to have more funding so that we could expand some of these programs, particularly summer scholars, which is our most expensive program. But it's very hard.
Yeah, absolutely. And so after this call, I'm going to send out the recording of this. So hello to everyone watching online after the fact. But I'm going to share out Dr. Solomon's contact information as well as their podcast, their social media for you to stay in the loop. But also, if you have questions on how to support the Orca office, or you want to get involved, please reach out to myself or Dr. Solomon, because we'd love to connect you with all these amazing opportunities and help continue to support these opportunities, because they're absolutely things that make CNU so unique compared to both large and small universities across the country. Because I mean, I can't imagine, I don't think even at larger institutions they even
No.
have programs to this.
I just actually got an email this morning from a faculty member, former faculty member at CNU, who has gone on to a much larger institution. And she said she was surprised that they don't have the kind of support for undergraduate research that we do. And even when students come to open houses with their parents and they're doing the kind of the tour of the schools in Virginia, they'll say, "We haven't seen anything like this at any other school."
Yeah. So just another point for Christopher Newport, but just another reason why there's just so much to love and support here on our campus. So thank you so much, Amber. Thank you so much, David, for spending an hour of your day with us. And thank you for just all the work that you're doing to support our students. Amber, also, you're supporting students in your role and all the things you're doing for the work office. Thank you. And good luck with your research presentations this year and all your grants you have out there and your application process, as well as trying to graduate. So Good luck, and thank you for sharing some of your valuable time with us. And then thank you to all of you for tuning in today. We've got a really exciting list of speakers for the rest of this semester, including Dr. Jonathan White, who's going to share with us about his newest research and book about Frederick Douglass and President Abraham Lincoln. We're even going to have the students who run a on-campus podcast called CNU on the Lawn, I think is the name of the student podcast. They're going to be with us in November, and we'll even have the Wasson Center talking about the gubernatorial race happening in Virginia this year. So it's going to be a wonderful fall, and we hope that you will join us again. But in the meantime, we will be seeing you next month. Thank you guys.